Hello, I'm Sharyl Attkisson. Welcome to Full Measure. The new year arrived in cities and capitals around the world under a more watchful eye. 2015 marked the rise of ISIS and a new terror threat. It was also the year that over 1 million refugees fleeing to Europe created what most call the worst migrant crisis since World War II. In a recent poll, 59%, or 3 in 5 European citizens, said they have negative feelings about migrants coming from outside the continent. More than twice as many, 58%, think the immigration issue is more important than their second biggest concern, terrorism. 2016 is likely to bring either quick action to control refugees or, some believe, the collapse of the European Union as we know it. Scott Thuman reports from Berlin.
The images of despair, the frenzy, immigrants fleeing war and anxious to call Europe their new home, have been seen around the world. What many may not have seen is the invisible side effect of it all, a potential that has put all of Europe in crisis mode.
We have to tell the world that this is over, we will close our borders, and we won't let anybody in now for a while.
People who disagree with you, who are on the complete opposite side, think that your way of thinking is inhuman, it's insensitive, it's unfair.
It is, of course, very hard sometimes to speak out the truth, but the truth is that we can't solve the problems of the world, and we can't solve the problems of all the poor people in the world.
The seemingly harsh tone taken by Beatrix von Stoy, deputy of Germany's right-wing Alternative for Deutschland party, has become part of a booming chorus. Rallies have become violent, even sparked more public revitalization of neo-Nazi groups who see their continent changing, edging toward a possibly historic chasm.
Is this one of the biggest crises Germany has seen since World War II?
I think this is the biggest crisis Europe has seen ever since the last war, yes.
And perhaps no city in Europe is a better example than Berlin, where in another time a tide of refugees fleeing from east to west created a dividing line that lasted for decades. This is one of the last remnants of the Berlin Wall. Ever since the Iron Curtain fell 26 years ago, Europeans have proudly enjoyed the freedom to go from country to country. But now, in light of new worries over terrorism and immigration, new types of barriers are going up. From Hungary to Croatia to Slovenia, workers erect wire fencing and passport checks have been reinstituted at borders in France, Germany, and Austria.
We still want to help, but the numbers are too high now. Several thousand people coming to Germany every day in a quite unregulated manner, people crossing European borders with no right to cross them. So we have to restore law and order in this process.
Gunter Krings is a state secretary for the interior in Germany and says the offer to take in up to 1 million refugees in 2015 meant taking the lid off a jar they can no longer close, not without what some would consider drastic measures.
The Schengen Agreement is in danger. We have to be quite frank about it.
The Schengen Agreement, created back in 1985, began the process of dissolving borders between more than 24 European countries. That allowed for free travel and, more importantly, free trade. The prospects of now limiting either could bring disaster to the European Union, already facing economic stress by raising the cost for business, deterring tourists, and making it harder for people to live in one EU country and work in another.
The European Commission, quite frankly, looked the other way for years.
That dilemma between a need for security, saving free trade, and refugees has put Germany's once popular Chancellor Angela Merkel in peril on her home turf. In the U.S. and France, the press named her Person of the Year. But the woman the refugees call Mama Merkel is not winning hearts at home. Extreme and neo-Nazi groups kept in the shadows for decades are re-emerging, loudly demanding her resignation. Journalist and author Olaf Sundermeyer has been studying the rise of radical groups.
We have a strong right-wing movement in Germany for years, but it always has been under control by the police, by civil society, by political parties, by us, the media. But now you have a merge, people come together. You have this really hard hardcore neo-Nazis, people that are violent, that are willing to burn refugees' homes or attack migrants or homosexuals on the street. And then you have on the other side people from the middle of the society that have their concerns towards the United States, towards refugees, towards all these things. And these people now get together, which was absolutely not possible since World War II in Germany.
An irony no more evident than here at the old Stasi headquarters. The signs from East Germany's most feared spy agency still on the walls, but behind the doors, Syrian refugees. A staggering 900 immigrants from the Middle East and Africa filled the old spy office, now run by the Red Cross, in just 3 days.
We have no name, we have no paper, we cannot go to doctor, we cannot go to anywhere, we are just number.
Bassem Hartani's family, sharing a pair of bunk beds, is from Aleppo. They say even if borders were closed, they'd still have made their way to Europe with little intention of ever returning to Syria. What is your future?
I don't know.
You don't know where you'll live?
Really, I don't know.
How you'll survive? How you'll work?
I don't know yet.
The cataclysmic fears? The demand on social services too much. The economic strain on Europe could cripple it, and cities would lose an identity they've fought so hard to retain.
In this regard, it was an accident waiting to happen, and it happened.
And much of the anger directed not at the Middle East, but at America.
What should America be doing differently?
Well, I think they just accepted to take 10,000. This is what we take every day, so maybe they take a bit more than 10,000.
They blame the US policy for refugees coming here, and these people don't want the refugees, and they don't want US foreign policy.
And what may seem baffling to Americans has become a reality, according to Sundermeyer and politicians we spoke to. They tell me there is a growing wave of people inside of Germany who now more closely align themselves with and support Vladimir Putin and Russia than the United States and President Obama. They say it is all about stopping the flow of refugees. This growing group believes that Russia and its military is doing more to solve the problem and stop fighting inside of Syria that is causing this refugee crisis, Sharyl.
So having been there, do you feel as though there really is a true risk that their economy could collapse? And our economy, of course, is connected to the Europeans.
Yeah, well, Beatrix von Stoy, who you heard from at the end of the piece there, she said there is a real danger in the EU splintering. And in fact, the head of the European Parliament said there is a warning. No one can say how long the EU will last at this rate. It'll be completely different, he says, perhaps in 10 years unless they fight for it, and they need a solution that so far has eluded everyone.
Scott Thuman, fascinating report. Thank you so much. Ahead on Full Measure, a fleet of aircraft that couldn't fly, paid for with your tax dollars. It was an Afghan Air Force that never got off the ground.